Good afternoon, YouTube. Today we're here to talk about the Alice Pack. And I'm here to answer the question, after 70 years of use, is this still the best ruck on the market or just an overhyped piece of boomer nylon kit that refuses to die? Whether you are a modern tactical warrior or a backpacker, watch this video and see if the Alice Pack is right for you. All right, so what is the Alice Pack? The Alice Pack is a large ruck developed by the U.S. Army in the late 50s to hold everything a fighting soldier might need on him, right? This was used in conjunction with what we call Alice kits, or the 1956 load-bearing equipment set, which would include an updated web belt, very similar to the World War II web belt. You had an H-style suspenders. You see these in Vietnam movies, right? If you've seen Platoon, you've seen this. You had two big pouches here that held two M14 mags each to be 4 + 1 in the gun, which was standard at the time. Throughout Vietnam, you'd see those double M14s torn into triple M16 pouches to be 6 on your person, plus 1 in the gun, the 7 mags, 210 rounds of 5.56 that we use today as a fighting load, right? Also included would be multiple canteen pouches, and the mag pouches would also include M67 frag grenade inserts on the exterior. So you carry 4 grenades, right? 4 M14 mags, 2 quarts of water, a fighting knife, and maybe a handgun. And this was the ruck that went along with this, right? The Alice Pack originally came in 3 sizes, all to use the same frame that they still use today, right? You had the small Alice Pack, which would be equivalent to maybe what we would call an assault pack today. At the time, you would have C rations instead of MREs, and you might be able to fit 1 to 2 days worth of fighting stuff in the small Alice Pack. The exterior pouches would be the same size, but the large portion would be a lot smaller. You had the medium Alice Pack, which was a little bit larger. Obviously it's the medium, it's in between this, the large and the small. That would leave you a little bit of room on the bottom of the frame for maybe a sleeping bag, and you could fit probably an extra change of clothes, extra ammo, extra food, kind of like a 72-hour bag today. And then this is the large Alice Pack. Honestly, I've never seen anybody use the medium or small Alice Pack. I know they exist and I know they're out there, but the Army quickly phased them out because they just weren't all that useful, right? You don't need a metal frame on a JanSport backpack. And most of the time, if you're going in the field, the small Alice Pack was used as a butt pouch for a while, but it's just, I don't know, if it's worth bringing a ruck, it's worth bringing a ruck. And if it's not worth bringing a ruck, then you might as well be light and not bring a whole metal frame backpack with you, right? All the early ones were OD green. Super simple construction. These have been copied the world over. You have 3 pouches on the exterior, super recognizable, right? On the other side, you've got a metal frame, super simple, right? Just a big old rectangle. And then down here you have, I guess they call it a kidney pad, but it's not super padded. Nothing on here is very padded, which I'll go into later, but you are getting like a very bare bones green ruck. Super sturdy, right? Real good stuff. This obviously can wrap around your belt, keeps it secure to you. And once you pull these, you can actually pull the whole ruck off of its frame, which is very handy, right? So flipping it back over, the Alice Pack has been used for years, right? From your lowest speed people to your highest speed people, right? Delta has been using these. The SEALs use these. Hunters use these. Doomsday Preppers use these. Because the Army made so many of them up through the 90s, they, for a long time, were a very cheap and reliable ruck, much like BDUs. For a long time, you couldn't go into an Army surplus store without finding these for super cheap, right? They're kind of drying up now because the Army hasn't made them since I believe the late 90s, but don't quote me on that. But they aren't as cheap as they used to be, but they're still out there, still accessible. We're gonna start with the exterior and go deeper in. I have this set up with probably 35 or 40 pounds of stuff. I used it on Friday for a 6-mile squadron ruck. That's why I have the reflective belt. Obviously they didn't have these in the late 50s. This is kind of a modern thing. I'll start by removing that. But yeah, One of the large features of the Alice Pack, we got US, right? United States. Don't know how well that shows up on camera because it's a little bit faded, but you have this big top flap, and this has been copied by many, many rucks, right? People did it before the Alice Pack, but the Alice Pack was kind of the biggest and first US military pack to use the big old top flap with cinching straps. These are a little bit long, and I actually plan on cutting mine down and installing clips on here, because I do prefer the clips over having to undo it every time you want something out of there, but that's gonna be a future video. Right now, we're talking about this basically completely stock Alice Pack. So we're gonna open her up. You just pull on these straps here. I'm gonna open all the way up for you guys. Standard little buckle, right? Push down, pull out, loosens up, and then when you want it tightened, you just grab them and pull it up, right? So I got them all the way loosened. This pops up. I like to bring these out the side. This top flap is really handy because you can just stuff crap under there. For example, I have water bladder, right? It's something that I don't like putting inside the ruck because these buggers always pop, right? Murphy's Law. If you don't want them to pop, they will, and I don't want to get everything wet inside my ruck. And what if I have to refill it, right? You throw it under there, throw the top up, it's secure. You want to pull it out? Boom, throw it on your back, leave this at the patrol base. So get that out of here. Inside the top flap, we have this really handy pocket, right? What you keep in there, I guess, kind of depends on you. I have a poncho in there. I don't really like to keep the poncho in there, but that's a unit SOP, so I don't write the rules, I just follow them. Standard poncho. It is handy having it fairly accessible, but inside there, you see you have a fairly large pocket. I know that some people will cut this rubber lining off and install a mesh and a zipper here, but I have the stock Velcro. I believe this Alice Pack was made in the late 80s or early 90s because it does have some amenities that the early ones don't have. Anything from the 60s and 70s is going to have a snap here instead of a Velcro. So do with that what you will. We have printed instructions here, field sack, combat nylon, large LG1, and then some washing instructions. So get that out of the way. Next, we have this drawstring and a nice little pincher, right? So you loosen that, pull that, and you can open up this very large portion here. Like I said, I was using this for a ruck recently, so I have stuff in here. I'm gonna kind of empty it as we go because I have to empty it anyway. There is plenty of room inside this ruck. And in the future, I'll likely do a how-to pack ruck video. I have a 72-hour video live on my page, but I wanna do something with a larger ruck because I think that's something people kind of neglect. Anyway, we get all this stuff out of here. Got the old JPC. I keep waterproof bag. This happens to be a trash bag inside my ruck. So if it rains, which sometimes in South Georgia it rains, or if you fall in a puddle, or if you get told, oh, we're rucking into the swamp or the pond today, all your stuff stays secure because these whoobies love to absorb water. So now that everything's out, you can see just how much space there is inside the Alice Pack. Obviously, like I said, this is the large Alice Pack, and there is a lot of room in here. It's one big pocket, and in conjunction, you have this little nylon pull tab and this little baby pocket. I assume that this is for like a Prick 117, but don't quote me on that. These are kind of out of phase, so I haven't really seen these used a ton in like active field work, but I assume this was for either a bladder or a radio or maybe just something you have to grab quickly. This little top pocket, but for the most part, you just have a ton of space to put stuff in here, right? Moving on to the exterior, we have these large pockets, super handy. Later Alice Packs would see it like a wolf clip on there, but I just have the snaps inside here. I have a whole extra uniform as well as an ECWW. Well, I have extra socks, underwear, a couple t-shirts. I don't have any pants or jacket in here. But a lot of room. You can fit an e-tool in here really easily. You can fit a whole MRE. In fact, if if you poked a pinhole in an MRE and scrunched it up, you could probably fit 2 of them in here. On the exterior, you have these slightly smaller pockets in addition to this little pocket behind the pocket, right? I really like these because they will in fact hold 1 Nalgene perfectly. And if you're like me, you like the Nalgene, right? This is a 32 ounce, 100 milliliter water bottle. These are freaking indestructible. Look, I'll do it again. I've never broken one of these, and I've only known one guy who broke it. And I don't know, I think he might be like a little bit retarded. These are difficult to destroy, and they fit right in there. Perfect, right? So when you're rucking, you can say, hey buddy, pass me in my back left pocket, I have a Nalgene. Pull that out. Or if you're dropping this at a patrol base, pull your water out, drink it. You can keep more of them in the center section, but having easy access to one, phenomenal, right? Completely accidental, right? I don't think that Nalgene consulted the US Army when they built this, and I don't think that the Nalgene water bottle existed in the late 50s when they designed this, but it ends up working really well. On the other side, I just have some junk in there right now. I think like a headlamp and some gloves and some wet wipes. But overall, really nice pockets. And then you can, like I said, on the rear side of these pockets, you have like a little slit that you can stuff things into. And it goes all the way through. See how that shows up on camera. So you could keep like a machete or something right in there, or something long like a fishing pole, right? You don't have to use these for combat. These work really good for hunting and fishing. Also on the exterior, we have 3 magazine pouches. I've never used them for magazine pouches, but right, if you were on like a long range patrol, you have 6 mags on your gear, 1 in your gun, and you just want an extra 3. In fact, you could probably double these up and have an extra 6, right? That's almost a whole extra combat load sitting in the top of your ruck. So if you expend 2, you get back to your patrol base, you open up that top flap, you have 2 mags right here ready to go. They're secured with little snaps. Super handy stuff. You have the Alice deals. I don't really know what you'd call these, but you can attach an e-tool or extra mag pouches to the exterior, and you also have these little holes. So anything that would mount to Vietnam era web gear would mount to this. I've seen people run the old machetes on the side. You can run the large canteen, the big square 1 quart or 2 quart, normal 1 quart canteens, big knives. I've seen people secure AT4s either on the side or under the top flap. Really, the possibilities are endless. You have a lot of freedom with this ruck. And I think the reason that you still see people use these is they are so durable. I've had this since probably like 2010, 2012. It's been on a lot of wrestling trips. It's been on a lot of TDYs, right? I've been using it for the last 4.5 years in the military. This went to Arctic school up in Fairbanks. It's been to Alaska. This has been to New York. This has been to Georgia. It's been to Texas. And nothing on here has fallen apart. There's a couple strings that I need to clean up just from use, but this is like a heavy duty nylon. I know it's like cringe to say this, but they don't make stuff like this anymore. There's no high-tech bullshit. There's no gimmicks. There's no zippers. It's just super simple, reliable ruck. There's a lot you can do aftermarket-wise. Since these have been around so long, there are plenty of people online who modify these, right? You can cut those up. People will cut these and install wolf clips. Like I said about these long straps, I think I'm actually going to cut them, sew them, and then put a clip so they're easier. Some new rucks do that. On the exterior, this frame is also super handy. If you are a hunter, you can pull this off and you can pull a whole moose quarter with this, right? If you have like some paracord or bungee cords, suddenly you have the ability to drop your ruck and move some animals with just the ruck, because that is super handy, right? When you're moving that much weight. Or if there's some other large stuff you got to carry, right? Being able to drop the ruck off and still have this frame that you can use for things, very handy. These do squeak sometimes, but overall, these are just a super reliable ruck. And if you are into hunting, fishing, hiking, backpacking, if you are in the military, if you're in a militia. Honestly, if you're anybody who needs a backpack, this is the backpack to get, and I couldn't recommend the Alice Pack enough. I've been issued plenty of rucks, and this is by far my favorite. The Malice Pack is very cool. I believe that's modified Alice Pack, but it could also be modular Alice Pack, don't quote me. But it just has an extra couple pockets. But overall, there's a reason this has been in service so long, and it's because it's possibly the best ruck ever developed. Everything's super simple, super reliable. Get one. Get one, use it, ruck. You know, everybody wants to buy Hydra mounts. Everybody wants to buy fancy IR lasers and night vision goggles. But when it comes down to it, if you want to be tactical, if you want to be lethal and you want to be efficient, get a good ruck and get a good pair of boots and just freaking run and ruck and get in shape. It's the basics. Doing the basics well is what's going to help you win battles and win wars. All right, guys, thanks for watching. I hope you learned a little bit about this American piece of kit. Amazing, fantastic kit. Yeah, if you have any other questions about military-related gear, watch my YouTube channel. Leave a comment in the comments. You know, I'm very willing to talk on any topic you guys want to hear me talk about. And yeah, give it a like, give it a dislike, give it a comment, and I'll see you next time.